Welcome to the Millionaire University podcast. I'm your host, Brien Gearin, back in the saddle with you today. And on this edition of the MU Pod, I'm joined by Dustin Heiner. He is the CEO of Master Passive Income, a real estate investing, education, and coaching business that helps people achieve financial freedom and independence and live the life of their dreams running their own real estate investing business. Dustin, I'm going to let you do a little bit more of intro on yourself, but welcome to the show, man. This is a pleasure.
Hey, Brian, thank you so much for having me, man. Yeah, I love podcasting. I love sharing with people how I became financially independent. I like the term successfully unemployed because I started telling people I was retired at 37 years old. They're like, well, what do you do with your life? Well, I do plenty of things. Well, but now I am a real estate investor, love investing in real estate, but I have so much time because I don't work for somebody else and I could come on podcasts and talk to great people like you. So thank you so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, my pleasure, man. This is going to be great. So we're going to dive right in. We're going to talk about how to create a six-figure passive income with real estate investing. But first, I want to set the stage a little bit for our listeners and talk about your origin story. How did you find yourself where you're at today?
Totally. So I didn't start out being an investor. We were middle to lower class family, didn't inherit any money, just started on my own. But I started just like everybody else has started. We literally are taught to go to school, get good grades. Then you take those good grades, you go to a college or university and get good grades again, get in thousands on thousands of dollars into debt, and hopefully get a piece of paper called a degree. And then you go to companies or organizations and try to get a quote unquote career, and then work 40 plus years of your life and retire and live on 40% of what you managed to save that entire time. Well, I'm following that exact same path, but I've always been entrepreneurial, starting businesses and that type of idea. So I had a newspaper route. I had a graphics and website design company, convenience store, and a pizzeria. Started them all from the ground up, but I bought one rental property. And that one rental property made me money without working. I started investing back in 2006, before the crash, 2008. But this is the story. I got to walk you on a journey of how I got catapulted into this real estate investing. So my wife and I are having kids, started having 1, 2, 3. And by the time we had our fourth child, I'm working at a local county government in California doing technology. So the most stable, secure job you can ever think of, technology, California, and the government. So it's not going away. And so we had our fourth child. And then I went on paternity leave when my wife had our fourth child. That's where their dad stays home with the mom, changes poopy diapers and all the good stuff, and bonds with the baby. Well, 2 weeks later, I go back to work. And on Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon, just getting back from the paternity leave, I get a call from my boss's secretary, like the top dog. And she says, Dustin, would you please come to the office? I said, sure. And I paused for a sec. I thought, why in the world did they call me to the office? Like, this isn't normal. And I've seen plenty of movies. 3:30 on Friday is not a good time to be called to the office. And then I also paused and thought, about 2 months before I went on paternity leave, there were some rumors or some rumblings go on that there could potentially be layoffs in the county because the county wasn't having good budgets. So I immediately shook it off though. No way, I got great seniority, 10, 15 years here. Boss is saying I do a great job. So I shake it off and I get up and I walk down the hallway to my boss's office. And this hallway isn't very long. In fact, it's kind of short, but every single step that I take, it feels like the hallway gets longer and longer and longer. It feels like my feet become lead bricks because the thought of potentially losing my job was starting to crush down on me. Well, I get down the hallway and I turn the corner and I see my boss's door. His door is closed and I see his secretary there. Super sweet, nice old lady. And she kind of sheepishly is grinning at me, trying to console me with her eyes because she knows everything about what's going on. I know nothing. And she says, Dustin, would you please have a seat? So I go and I sit down and I think about my life. As I'm sitting there, I start thinking, oh my goodness, this career path that everybody's taught, I was taught, if I get laid off right now, did I just waste my life doing this? And oh my goodness, we just had our fourth child. If I don't have a job to make money, how am I going to provide for them? Does that make me a failure as a father? Does that make me a failure as a husband, as a man trying to provide for his family? Well, as I'm sitting there, my hands get all clammy, my forehead gets all sweaty because the nerves of losing my job is crushing down on me. Well, the boss's door opens up and a coworker of mine comes out of the office holding a piece of paper in her hands. She is noticeably distraught, noticeably upset, but not necessarily crying, but you could tell her world has been rocked. So my boss says, Dustin, would you come to the office? So I get up and I go into his office and I get laid off. And remember, this is the government. Nobody gets fired or laid off from the government, but I did. And this is the reason why I tell the story. So I take that layoff notice and I go and I sit down and I realize two things. Number one, I need to get another job. I need to be able to provide for my family. So I was really blessed, praise the Lord, to find another job in the same county. A different department wasn't having the budget issue. So check, got that. But the second thing, sitting in that chair, just getting laid off, I realized I need to make sure that this never, ever happens to me again. I need to make sure that nobody has the ability to take away my ability to feed my family. So right then and there, I realized whenever anybody would ask me the question, we all get this question, well, what do you do? I would reply, my job. I would say, oh, I work for the county doing IT. Well, I'm basically projecting out to the world what value that I put on myself is coming from my job. No, I realize my value doesn't come from my job. My value comes from my God and from myself and from my family. So right then and there, I made a decision. I'm going to tell everybody that I am an investor. It may so happen that 100% of my money comes from my job. That's now my part-time job. I am a full-time investor. So fast forward the story, started buying property after property after property. Each one making me $250, $350, $500, $600 a month in passive income where I get experts doing the work for me. Eventually I had 30 plus properties and I thought, why am I working here? So last part of the story, I went to my new boss, good boss and all. And I said, hey boss, I'm laying you off, jokingly. We both laugh. He says, well, Dustin, what are you going to do? I said, I don't have to do anything. I have real estate. That real estate works for me and now I have passive income. So the last part of the story, I would walk to and from my job every day at a mile and a half every single day to and from. I've done this 1,000 times, but the last time walking away from my job for the very last time, I felt like I was walking on clouds because I knew I would never ever need a job again, as opposed to walking down that short hallway that got longer and longer and longer with lead bricks. Well, different is because now I knew that my financial freedom was in place. And so everybody listening, I want you to realize this. Your boss is not paying you what you are worth. You are worth so much more than anybody could ever pay you. This is how you'll know. Your boss is paying you just enough to keep you working without quitting, but not so much money that takes money out of their pocket. If they paid you what you were worth, they would go broke. So what I do instead, and what I did instead, is I put the life back in my own hand, or my life back in my own hands, and I created a business. That business makes me money. And now I have 40 plus hours of my life back so that I could create more businesses and provide for my family. So I'll pause the story because you probably got plenty of questions.
I mean, that's an incredible story. And I'm sure that resonates with so many people, and it resonates with me too. Cause I remember the last time I held a real job, it was very similar. It was one of my first jobs out of college. It was one of those 3:30 on a Friday. It was a sales job. I sucked at it. It was awful. And it was my first like long walk down the hallway to, hey, you stink. You no longer work here. Or, there's like, you get 1 month. And I was like, you know what? No, I'm out. This sucks. I'm out. So yes, I've been there. I can resonate. I'm sure so many people have, but that feeling you mentioned of walking on clouds on the way out of your last quote unquote real job. I mean, that has to be the most euphoric feeling, knowing that you now control yourself and your destiny and your earnings, your people, your family, right? And that's one of the possibly the most rewarding thing about entrepreneurship is not having to report to another grown-ass man or woman that, hey, I want to go on vacation, or hey, you hold my future in your hands like a little bird. Like that's the worst feeling in the world to me. Hence why you and I are entrepreneurs. But yes, so real estate investing and passive income. Obviously, it's been around a while, right? But I think when people first think of passive income, they probably think of real estate investing. So when you first got into that, that was kind of on the side. So how do you start this? What was it like for you when you were first like, okay, I've got this job, but I'm interested in this entrepreneur thing. I want to do something that's a little passive. How did you first get that foot in the door with real estate?
Yeah, so it's really interesting. So in 2006, I was, like all employees do, you just watch TV. And I was watching TV, was really late at night, an infomercial came on where this quote unquote real estate guru said, hey, we're coming to your town, free 2-hour seminar, teach you how to invest in real estate. I'm like, that's great. I'm going to go. I went to that, but it was horrible. It was all sales pitch, all hype. Then they say, now run to the back. It's normally $1 million, but it's $1,000 today for a 2-day seminar. So I ran to the back. I spent that $1,000. And then I went to that 2-day seminar. It was even worse. It was 2 days of them sales pitching their $80,000 course, their $100,000 course, or whatever. It was just all about making money. But I did take what little bit they told me about how to buy a property anywhere in the country, rent it out, and make passive income. But I did that. And the sad thing was, My property manager started stealing from me within 6 months because I did not know what I was doing. But here's one interesting thing. If I would have hung my head and said, oh, it just doesn't work, it doesn't work, I'm not going to do it, I wouldn't be sitting here today. But I did think, people have done this in the past. Like, I'm not the first one to ever do this, but let me approach this from a business mindset, an entrepreneurial mindset. And the problem was I did not build the business first. I just went and bought a property. And instead, this is what I tell all my students we've coached, or I've coached over thousands of students now. We have a conference where we bring all real estate investors together. Like, it's all about helping people to invest. And every single time I tell them, what you need to do is you need to build a business. I did it the wrong way, just by buying the property first. You need to build the business first. And let me quickly give you an example of what that looks like. So if you're going to start a convenience store, candy bars and soda machines and all that good stuff, well, you're not going to sign a lease on a location, open the doors, and set a box of candy bars in there on the ground. You wouldn't do that. You go out of business in 2 seconds. But what you would do is you would build the business first. You get the gondolas, those are shelving units that all the candy bars go on, the countertops, cold storage, bank accounts, cash registers, employees, insurance, everything in the business before you buy any inventory. Same thing with real estate investing. You build the entire business, so you get experts in the city that you're investing. I invest in 5 cities now. All my students, we invest all over the country. We don't invest necessarily where we live. We invest all over the country. But you build the business by finding the experts in the city that you're investing in, hiring them or getting them in your team, in your business, so that when you go buy a property, you don't buy a bad property, that they're the ones doing the work for you. Does that all make sense? Like, you build the business first, and then you buy the property, and that property is your inventory. See, I did it backwards. I bought the inventory first, and then I tried to build the business. And I have so many people say, Dustin, I bought a property, spent thousands of dollars to fix it up, spent thousands of dollars buying it, found a tenant, and then tried to find a property manager. And all the property managers said they would not manage it because they get shot there. Like, well, you don't have an asset anymore. You have a liability now. So instead, how much better it would be hiring experts, building your business first, instead of calling a property manager saying, property manager, I already spent thousands of dollars buying and fixing up. Would you manage the property? They say no. Instead, you say, I'm looking to buy this property. Tell me, how much will it rent for? What's the vacancy factor like? How much, like, what type of tenants, how much will it rent for? If they say they won't manage it, then you don't waste your time and money. But if they say they do manage it, then you'll have great information so that you know you can make passive income. And I suggest $300, $500 a month in passive income. So does that all make sense as we build the business first? And that's what I didn't do, but then I figured out the hard way how to do it right.
So build the infrastructure, everything you need to be considered a business. And then it sounds like the biggest task in here is finding a property manager, or is it a management company? Is this like a company that acts as a vendor? Is it a single person who's like Rick, the expert in these 5 neighborhoods in Atlanta? How does that work?
So, brilliant question. Most people don't ask that question. So I really love your question. So most people skip over the property manager. They'll jump right to financing, getting money, because that's people, how to get money to it, or finding. Like, I need a good property and I need money to buy the property. That's honestly, like, on my YouTube channel, on my podcast for Master Passive Income, those are the most downloaded ones, because that's what easily people think to. They think that's the limiting factor. In my opinion, no, it's not. In fact, those are the most downloaded, but the ones that are the least downloaded are the ones that they need. It's, how are you going to run the business or have somebody else run the business continually? It'd be like starting that convenience store that you spent all this time building up, and then you start having customers coming in, you have money and all that sort of stuff, and you find somebody across the street and say, hey, you got a pulse? Come on in and manage my money, manage my customers, manage my inventory, manage my business. No, you wouldn't do that. You would hire them very slow. So the quarterback, the main person on your team, is your property manager. They're going to be the ones making sure you're buying the right properties. They don't want to manage a property that is bad in a bad area. They want you to buy the right properties, because they're going to be managing property for 5, 10 plus years. My property managers work for me forever, and I never talk to them, which is great. I just make money. And so you're 100% right. The number one person that you need on your team that's going to help you is your property manager. And my suggestion when you're building your business, just like hiring a manager for a brick and mortar business like the convenience store, you're going to hire slowly but fire fast, which means slowly interview lots of property managers, interview them multiple times, ask lots of questions till you find the right company. And like you said, it could be one person that is a property manager. If that's the best one you could find, then go with them. I've used smaller, one person companies or big nationwide companies or, city or statewide companies. I've used those too. But it's all about interviewing them and finding the right company for your business. And so when you find a right company that's going to manage your properties, they're going to make sure that you do everything right. They're probably going to have contractors, they're probably going to have plumbers and roofers and people in the business to make sure it's done right.
Okay, so sticking on the property management thing here, because it sounds like if you don't knock this one out of the park, then you might be dead in the water with your investment. So, um, there, I guess, in cities across the country, and it sounds like there's national companies too. They basically act as a vendor where you call them up, say, "Hey, I'm going to be a property owner in town. I'm looking to pair with somebody like you." And these companies, are they structured with like a management team that they're kind of like the brains of the bunch, where it's these are the neighborhoods we recommend. Tell me what house you're looking at. Okay, that's a good investment. We would do that for you, and we charge. How does that work? Is it X percent of your income off the property? What is that?
Yes.
What does that
So
look like?
here's how I like to do it is I don't give too much information when I'm calling them. I literally call up property managers. A new person would say, "Hey, property manager, I'm getting into investing in real estate. I'm building my team out," and they give way too much information. Me, I have 30 plus properties now, hotels, apartment complexes. When I look for a property manager, I call up, "Hey, property manager, I'm an investor. I'm looking for a new property manager. Tell me about your services." Just straightforward. And that puts them where they're like, "Ooh, this person knows what they're talking about." They're not just kicking tires and acting like an investor. So with that, you ask great questions and you have no property managers will try to give you information, but you need good information. And how you get a good information is by asking good questions. You have a good idea, but the way to get this information out is and here's a great question. This is one-on-one coaching. This is what I give all of my students. If you're going to be talking to a property manager, a brand new one that you've never talked to before, you want to get out of them where is a good area in the city that you want to invest, that you should invest in. You ask the question, "Hey, property manager." Remember, this is one-on-one coaching I give to my students. If you were to invest your personal money in this city, where would that be? That gets them a good understanding of how to answer the question. If you just ask them, "Hey, where should I invest?" They're going to say, "Oh, well, yeah, there's here, here, and here, and here, and here." Or if you ask the question, "Where should I not invest?" They'll probably say, "I can't tell you that. That's discrimination, blah, blah, blah." I've had property managers say that. So a great question is, where would you invest your money? But then there's at least 20, maybe 25 questions that you need to ask and the proper answers. In fact, I give all my students all the 20 plus questions that they need to ask from, like fees that they're going to charge. What are they going to do if there is a property that has a vacancy? Like, how are they going to get it rented? What if there's a 2 a.m. phone call about a toilet? You need to ask all these questions so you know how they're going to respond to take care of your properties. And then quickly, one last thing with the property managers, you need to make sure that you give them your personal systems and processes. Meaning, I tell my property managers, however you deal with your other landlords that own properties with you, that's fine. You deal with them but my properties, you need to do what I tell you to do. I'll give you an example. The rent is due on the 1st, it's late after the 3rd, and then you give on the 4th a 3-day notice for all my properties. You completely do it 3-day notice that they have to pay. And after those 3 days, you start the eviction like clockwork because it's the least discriminatory practice because we're treating everybody the same. But that's a system, that's a process that we tell our property managers. And when you have a property manager that knows your business system and process, you literally have an automatic business, a passive income business. In fact, there's a fun book. Last thing I'll quickly share is there's a fun book called 4-Hour Work Week. Really good book. The premise is try to make your life so you can work 4 hours a week. Well, in my opinion, working 4 hours a week is for suckers. I don't want to work 4 hours a week. I don't even want to work 4 hours a month. I maybe work 30 minutes a month on all my properties because I have awesome expert property managers doing all the work for me. And I could just, have fun on podcasts, playing with my kids and building other businesses.
I love it. I love it. So this leads me to my next question. Maybe this is a little bit meta, but what makes this truly passive? Is it the people that are involved? Like, because I know a lot of people, there's a lot of, you know, passive income is a farce, or it's always semi-passive. But it sounds like this is, like you said, besides maybe 30 minutes of checking in, how, like, it's the systems? Is that the answer?
A lot of people say they start picking hairs on what is passive income. My personal belief, the only like truly passive income is if you're like Michael Jackson or Stephen King or the Beatles. Like you worked a ton, like made lots and lots of songs or wrote lots and lots of books. And then because it's already out there, then people just buy, like Michael Jackson still sells songs, still sells, like it's going to keep going. That's really the only true passive. But here's my perspective on what passive is. Passive is working one time and then getting paid over and over and over again. Active is what we do when we work a dead end job, that just over broke job. A job is you're living just over broke. Well, what you're doing is you're selling your time. You're selling your life for money. And so that's active income because if you don't work, you're not going to get paid. Passive income is working one time, getting paid over and over again. So the secret sauce is two things. Number one, you need an asset that makes you money. Just like if you wrote a book, that just continually sells. Well, that asset is doing the work for you. You're not having to do that work. When I buy one property, that property is doing work. My property manager is not doing the work. My property is doing the work. So that's the first part of the secret sauce. Having a good property, make sure it's nice and you're not slumlord and all that sort of stuff. That you have a good property people want to live in. The second thing is how do we manage that asset to make sure that it continually makes money? Just like if you wrote a book, put it on Amazon.com. Amazon's your property manager. You're your book manager selling the book for you, making sure that distribution, all that sort of stuff. Same thing with real estate. You make sure that your asset is managed well by having a property manager that is trustworthy, that has good communication, that's going to be able to take care of your property.
So you said you're in 5 different cities. Are you mostly investing in single family homes? Is it multi-family dwellings? What does your portfolio look like? And what do you recommend for somebody who might be just getting their feet wet in real estate investing?
Yeah, let me start it from how I was able to become financially independent or successful and employed. So I asked my wife, I said, hey, honey, what are our expenses? Like how much money do we need to make a month to cover our expenses so I don't have to work anymore? And I completely remember the number. It was $4,200. Like I just knew it for some reason. Like it stuck with me. Mortgage, insurance, food, and all that sort of stuff. I was like, okay, $4,200. Well, if I bought one property that maybe $250 a month in passive income, that's without working, that's $3,000 a year. 10 properties at $250 a month. It's $2,500 a month, $30,000 a year. If I had 20 properties at $250 a month, that's $5,000 a month. That's $60,000 a year. I said, if I just scale it, if I get to more properties, then I could be making $60, $70, $100,000. I have properties now. And remember, the $250 was the minimum, $250 a month. I have properties making me $1,000 a month because when you buy a property over time, rents go up, the values go up. You pull money out, refinance, pull the money out, buy properties, buy more real estate. And so that's how I scale. Now, I personally, 30 plus properties. I literally just bought 3 properties last year, an Airbnb, a midterm property, a couple long-term properties. But I also invest in apartment complexes. I have a 355 unit apartment complex, invest in hotels. But I didn't start where I'm at now. I started small by buying one single family home. And for me, and this is how it's true for literally all, thousands of my students, proving to yourself that it's possible. That is that first property. That's always the hardest. Like the 355 unit apartment complex was so much easier compared to the first one. First one's the hardest because you got to get over yourself. Once you buy that first one, it's like the floodgates. You're like, oh my goodness, it's like riding a bike. It was easier than now I could do it. The second one comes much, much faster, the third one. And then you start scaling, and you scale by recycling your money, which means you pull money out of your properties, the equity that you have, and you buy more properties. It could be a quick example. So 2 of the properties I just bought in Akron, Ohio, each for about $130,000. I have another property that I have a home equity line of credit. Well, it's $250,000 home equity line of credit. I was like, man, I could take all of that equity, buy these 2 properties. These 2 properties now I own cash, free and clear, and they pay off that home equity line of credit, and I make another $1,000 a month in passive income from these properties. So that's the way, what I'm thinking of, or helping you to understand. There are so many creative ways. Remember when I said financing and funding are 2 of the easiest parts, or people think it's the hardest part. They go and download those videos and all that sort of stuff, but that's the easiest part. Finding the deals is very, very simple. In fact, I have lots of people send me deals because they know I'm an investor. And I also have lots of people that want to invest with me. So the financing is so easy because I have people that want to invest with me. So the harder part is making sure you're making money every single month, that you're continuing to take care of the assets by having the property managers. But the easier part is getting the financing. And I've literally done 15 different ways to get creative financing. Like I didn't have to make money from my job to buy these properties. I literally recycle it. And one quick last thing I'll say, we make passive income. That's what my family eats. We make money every single month. Cash flow is probably the better word because, passive income, but cash flow. Every month, my companies make money. Just like if I bought a candy bar for 50 cents and sold it for $1, I'm making 50 cents every single time. I would not buy it for $2 and sell it for $1. I'd lose money. But the beautiful thing about real estate investing, you buy it for 50 cents, sell it for $1. But what if you don't have that 50 cents? Well, let's say it costs you 25 cents to borrow 50 cents. You're out of pocket 75 cents. You still make 25 cents because you sell it for $1. That's what real estate investing is all about. We recycle our money, build our portfolio. My bread and butter, residential, 4 units and below, love those. But then once you have those, then it's easy to scale into bigger and larger apartment complexes and hotels and play Monopoly in real life.
Wow. So when you're looking for a property, do you do fixer-uppers, or is it when you go out and buy it, it's got to be something that's livable, or at least minimal updates need to be made to make it livable type of thing? Or is it like it's got to be move-in ready for me to invest in this?
I'll give you the route that I go. Number one, I'll buy any property if it's, if I need to fix it up, but I buy and hold. I will literally give these properties to my kids. It's generational wealth. Like I'm not going to sell them. If I sell them, I lose money because I don't make it anymore, but I will give them to my 5 kids. Now, what we do though is we buy the right properties and we make sure we're making money. But now if I'm talking to a brand new student that's wanting to invest in real estate, they say, hey, Dustin, there's this house, I'm going to buy it for $100,000. It's going to be about $60,000 to fix up, lots of renovations, lots of fixing up. I usually steer them away from that because there are other properties that take less time to fix up. So if you're brand new, I would not personally suggest buying a fixer-upper because you have a lot of money tied up. You need a quick win. You need a quick win to help yourself in your brain because that's the hardest part, is getting past yourself. It works. I can do it. Once you have 10, 15 properties, then yeah, of course, buy those fixer-uppers. Save a ton of money make a ton of money by buying it for cheaper, fixing it up. You capture all that equity. You force the appreciation up, the value up. Yes, because you already have the business going. When you're first getting started, let's buy one that needs maybe $5,000 or $10,000, maybe 2 or 3 weeks to fix up so you can get a quick win and get that cash flow coming in.
So let's talk, speaking of cash flow, let's talk margins of a business like this. Now, I know they should be pretty high, I'd imagine, but there's expenses that come with home ownership. You might own your own home that you and your family live in, and now you own this other property that's now an investment property. How do you avoid the pitfalls of what goes into home ownership on a second home, your very first investment property? And then what can you reasonably expect in terms of margins, in terms of your costs? I know that can vary a lot. But is this something like where, hey, let's just make $250 to start, or should I expect 1,000?
So I make it very, very simple. At least for me, I make it simple for me and then break it down for you. So I'll say it this way. I don't pay my mortgage on any of my properties. I don't pay my taxes. I don't pay my insurance. I don't pay for repairs. I don't pay for my property manager. I don't pay for any of that stuff. Meaning I don't got to get a job to pay for my property manager. My tenants pay for all of those. Now the money comes into me and out to all my bills, all the expenses, but I account for all those expenses before I buy the property. And here's a key thing. I also make sure that my income, the cash flow, the passive income that I make is an expense line item. I don't just hope I'm making a minimum of $250, or let's say I need $500. I don't hope that I'm going to make that. That's an expense item. My cash flow is an expense item, just like your mortgage, insurance, taxes, all that stuff. My cash flow is an expense item. So I just add all those up and make sure, because I hire the experts, I make sure that I can rent it for more than that. And that's how you make cash flow. So when you're talking about, like your overhead, I don't have any overhead because I have property managers. They have their own employees, but I just pay them 10%. Usually every property manager is 10%, and they take a leasing fee on top of that. And they have little fees here and there. That's why you got to interview a lot of property managers to find the right ones. But I make sure that every expense is accounted for before I buy the property, so that the tenant's rent coming in is going to pay for all those expenses and give me money so that I can feed my family.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. So it's making sure that before you do the deal, the cash flow coming out of this is going to cover everything and leave enough profit on top. Even if it's not a ton of profit to start with, There's
Oh, well,
something there.
yes. Well, here's the thing. A lot of people might say, well, you want to invest for appreciation, for the value to go up. I said, no, no, no. In fact, in 2006, that's what people were doing. But I knew I could not feed my family with appreciation. I need money to feed my family. So I was solely going for cash flow. I don't buy the $500,000 homes hoping to make $250. I know I buy the $100,000 homes. People still want to live there. It's still great houses and make $250, $300, $500 a month in passive income. And so when I buy a property, I look for properties that are going to be making cash flow. Now, the appreciation is great because I pull the cash out to buy more properties, and those properties pay off those loans, the new loans that I get. And once that loan's paid off, I now have both properties making me even more money.
Wow. Okay. So, and you mentioned also taking out basically like a home equity line. So, the funding part, I know we haven't touched on that too much, but you said it's the easiest part because there's creative ways to do it. Is that just a matter of, doing your research and understanding these creative ways, or is it more of a you need to be like you need to know a lender or somebody who's in the business and knows about all these different ways? Obviously, you're one of these people, but if you're just starting it out, what does it look like?
Yeah, it's a mixture of both. A lot of them you can say half of them you can just call up companies like private money lenders, hard money lenders, DSCR, debt service coverage ratio. It's like a business loan. It loans on the value of the property, how much money it makes in. So there are those. You just call them up and you can get those. Other ones would be because people know you're an investor. I get people like I raised $1.5 million for the apartment complex that I bought recently, and it's because I knew people, and then people knew me as an investor. I put it out there, hey, I'm buying a property. If you want to join me, go right ahead. And so people invested in my deals. And so out of the 15 different ways, I would say half of them, maybe a third of them, you just call people up and you can get those, like a signature loan from a bank. You just go in a bank and, hey, can I have an unsecured line of credit? Yes, they'll give it to you. Not a high dollar amount, but it's a lot of fees. But if you need that money, just like if you sold a candy bar for $1, you buy it for 50 cents, but it costs you 25 cents. It doesn't matter how much the money costs you because you're still making money as long as you can do it right. And so you want to also be letting people know that you're an investor. Another great way would be seller financing, finding somebody who doesn't need to sell right away, that they want to be the bank and make more money. Another way would be somebody's they're struggling. Maybe they're getting a divorce. Maybe they lost their job and they have a good mortgage on it that has a low interest rate. You take over the payments. It's subject to the mortgage. You get the title in your name. You just take over the payments for them and you have the property. There's so many creative ways, but you're right. It comes with education, knowing that these options are out there and how to use them. That's one of the things so I have lots of students, and my students have then become coaches here at Master Passive Income because they've done so well and they see the vision of helping people. And what's great is what we do as coaches, we show all the options. Like I don't tell any student, hey, do X, Y, and Z. Now I give them the principles, the step-by-step process, but on a specific property, I'll tell them, here are your options. Here are the different types of funding options. Here's the different ways to buy the property, all that sort of stuff. You need to figure out with your risk tolerances, your goals, your financial, wherever you are financially, you need to pick what's best for you. I'm going to give you all the options and then help you whichever one you pick. And I'm going to give you the outcome of each one because I've done just about all of them as well. I've seen all of them. But yeah, that's the entire process, is educating yourself or getting to know what's out there. But in my opinion, I like fast tracking success. And if you think about it, took me 9 years to quit my job by doing it the hard way, School of Hard Knocks, figuring this all out. My students quit their job, become financially independent in 3 and 4 and 5 years because I've cut all the learning curve. I've given them all the steps. I also help them out, all that sort of stuff. And so I would gladly pay money to get 5 years or 6 years or 7 years of my life back rather than me spending $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 doing it the wrong way. I'd rather pay somebody, $1,000 for a course or, whatever it might be, like $100 a month for a membership. Or I'd much rather do that because then I get my time back and get my life back.
Absolutely. So especially when you were starting out, what are some of the pitfalls of, some of the landmines of real estate investing? Have you stepped on any in your business? And what are some of your top ones?
The biggest one is not building the business first. That's by far the business. And that's how I lost the most money. My property manager started stealing from me. And so when you build the business first, you find the right people in your business, then they make sure that you step over those landmines. And so That is probably by far, if you're going to take anything away, you build the business first, hiring the right people, experts in the area, like Zillow, Realtor.com, like all these websites, they're just databases. They're not experts. Who is the expert? The people there on the ground. Like a property manager, like you go to Zillow and say, "Yeah, Zillow, how much can I rent it for?" And they'll give you a number, their estimate, what rent estimate that they give you. It's so much better if you call up your property manager. "Hey, property manager, how much can I rent this for?" And they say, "Oh, we have a property that's right around the corner. We tried to get 1,300. Zillow said it was going to be 1,300. We can only get 1,100." Well, if you bought thinking you can buy or rent it for 1,300, but you can only rent it for 11, that cuts into your profit by $200. It's so much better getting the professionals, the experts doing the work for you.
Absolutely. Okay. So make sure you get those experts. Is there any pitfalls when it comes to the funding side of things? I think as you said, the funding is usually people's biggest question is like, how do I get into this? Do I need money? What are a couple landmines when it comes to funding to avoid?
Yeah. A landmine I'll give you a couple of them. So when you start getting a little more, I won't say aggressive, but like professional, and you start getting hard money lenders, which are short term loans, like 12-month loans, or private money, they want their money back in 3 to 5 years. Let's say grandma, she wants her money back in 3 years. A pitfall is you get these hard money loans and your tenants are paying for it because it's part of the rent that you're accounting for your expenses, basically what I'm trying to say. And the pitfall is 12 months comes up and then, oh my goodness, now the interest rates jack up because it was only supposed to be a 12-month loan. That's the pitfall, is you get stuck in these really high interest loans because you didn't do it right. My goal, or what I say, tell everybody, it's great to use hard money loans or private money loans, but you want to, this is one-on-one coaching I'm giving you, before you get this hard money, before you sign your name on the hard money or the private money, you need to 100% know how to get out of that hard money. You want to have at least two different lenders. You tell them, "Hey, lender, I'm going to get this with private money or hard money. I need to get it into a 30-year fixed. You need to get into a 30-year fixed loan as quickly as possible. What do I need so that as soon as I sign, I can quickly get it to you before I run into problems with higher interest rates?" That's by far one of the biggest things I see people getting hiccups with.
Okay. So speaking of interest rates, obviously kind of the rebound from COVID, interest rates were delicious, right, if you will. Now that we're in an environment where interest rates are much higher than they were 3 years ago, and there's probably no sign of them coming back down. I don't think we'll see 2%, 3% interest rates maybe ever again, but at least for a very long time. And historically speaking, like the 5 to 7 isn't awful. So when it comes to the interest rates and somebody who's getting into real estate investing, is that just, it's part of the gig and you got to account for that? Or are there ways I know you can buy down points and things like that, but for an investment property, what type of play does an interest rate have when you're looking at a deal?
So you're going to hear me say this, and it's contrary to everybody else that you probably ever hear about interest rates. I am so excited rates are going up. I am so pumped. I'm just like ecstatic. Here's a big reason why. Who is my biggest competition when it comes to buying single family homes? It's homeowners. Well, homeowners are literally priced out of the market. Prices have to come down because they don't have as much money. They only have a certain amount of money every single month to pay for their mortgage that has interest and everything. But what's great for me is I don't care if interest rates are 20% and that's the going interest rate. I don't care. Why? Because my tenants pay for those. I buy the property making sure that I can afford, or that the property pays for the interest. Now, here's what's going to happen. Let's say it goes to 20%. Prices must come down because people can't buy it at 20%. So prices are brought down. And I just know I don't buy a house unless the interest is paid for out of the rent and I still make money. So what's going to happen if interest rates keep coming up? Prices must come down. So it's all a win-win-win for me as a real estate investor. So my biggest suggestion is making sure that you make money on day one when you buy the property. I started investing back in 2006, and I make money if the market goes up, if the market goes down, or if the market goes sideways, because I invest for cash flow. Now, the greatest thing is when 2008, when people were losing their jobs, all the real estate investors were going bankrupt. It felt like I was the only one that was not going bankrupt because I did not care about appreciation. It was only cash flow. And the sad thing is people lost their homes because they lost their jobs. They had to foreclose. But what does that do? It turns them into renters. So my rents went up. I made more money in 2010, 11, and 12. So if you do this business right, There are so many ways to actually win.
I love it. I love it. And it's, everybody needs shelter and there's plenty of renters to go around. So I'm sure it's not difficult to keep your properties continually rented.
Not at all.
Yeah.
Not at all. Now, it's just a cost of business. Like, one thing that we have to do is account for a vacancy factor, how much of the year it's actually not going to be rented with a turnover, new tenants coming in. You account for that as well. It's part of your numbers, what we do. But in everything, like, honestly, I never lose money on any of my properties because I buy them right. You make your money when you buy the property. You realize it when you sell it. But then again, I don't sell it because I make money every single month and I'll give these to my kids.
Right, exactly. And if you ever did have a property where you're tired of it or you don't want it anymore and you want a little bit of liquid cash, you can sell it, right? Like
Well,
it's
but
totally up
no,
to you.
here's what you do. I never sell it because if I want liquid cash, I refinance it
Ah,
and get a tax-free loan. Of tax-free loan. If I sold it, I have to pay taxes on it, capital gains tax.
that's a
They could
great
take,
point.
20%, 30%. Instead, I refinance it. So here's I'm going to give you what the rich do. This is what the ultra rich do. They make, let's say, $5 million a year. Well, they buy real estate with that cash that lowers their taxable income. Then they refinance it, pull that cash back out to buy things that they want, go on lavish vacations, all that stuff. That's a tax-free loan. So they're getting out taxes by buying things that cut their taxes, getting a tax-free loan to spend on more things.
I love it. That's the secret here, folks. You heard it here first. How the ultra rich do it. That's genius. I mean, that's obviously why they're ultra rich. It works. Awesome. Well, Dustin, I could go on for hours with you, but I know I got to get you out of here. You're a busy man. So, uh, building things that you can do with your passive income, of course. So, I want to make sure that all our listeners, if they want to reach out to you, if they want to learn more about Master Passive Income, what's the best way to follow you? And what's the best way to check out all the programs and coaching services you offer?
Yeah, absolutely. So my goal is to help 1 million people to invest in real estate. Do you mind if I give everybody just a free course that they can get started and
Yeah,
actually invest?
absolutely. We're all about abundance here.
Awesome. Yeah, I make my money through real estate, so it's just free getting all this stuff out. If you text the word rental, RENTAL, rental to 33777, rental to 33777, I'll literally give you my course, show you how to find an area of the country to invest, how to make sure you're building the business right, how to get financially free because you're scaling your business. You can even go to masterpassiveincome.com, masterpassiveincome.com/free course. All one word, /free course. You'll get that there. You could also find me. I have my own podcast. I started back in 2016, the Master Passive Income Podcast. It's like pretty much a solo show. Me just teaching how to do this, ins and outs, everything. So find out Master Passive Income, YouTube as well. But one quick last thing, I actually really enjoy Instagram. I've been getting better and better on there. I don't know, 40,000 followers now, but I love getting DMs. So if you want to follow me on Instagram, see all the fun stuff. I love memes. I love teaching all that stuff. The Dustin Heiner, Dustin Heiner. You'll find me on there, but send me a DM. Let me know you listen to the show. The Millionaire University is such a great show, and so I'm glad you're listening. But I just want to see more and more people invest in real estate.
I love it. Awesome. Well, Dustin, this has been so cool. Thank you so much for stopping by the show today. You brought so many nuggets of knowledge that I know our listeners are going to walk away with. So this has been an absolute pleasure, and I can't wait to chat with you again in the future.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate you, Brien.
All right.